If you're someone who believes love is simple, if you think loyalty is black and white, if you've ever judged someone without knowing what they were starving for inside, then subscribe. Because tonight's story is not about temptation. It's about loneliness hiding inside perfection. It's about the quiet hunger no one sees. It's about how a single moment, one glance, one touch, can crack open a life that took decades to build. And I promise you this. By the end of this story, you won't be sure who to blame. His hands were still damp when they brushed across my bare shoulders. And in that instant, just one suspended, fragile instant, I forgot I was someone's wife. I forgot the ring. I forgot the vows. I forgot the woman I had spent 23 years becoming. For 23 years, I believed I had built something unbreakable. A life people admired. A life people envied. A life that looked flawless from the outside. We lived in a large white house tucked into the Georgia suburbs, the kind with shutters that always looked freshly painted, and a wraparound porch wide enough for rocking chairs and evening tea. The lawn was trimmed with mechanical precision. The hydrangeas bloomed obediently each spring. Even the mailbox stood straight and proud, as if it, too, understood appearances mattered. Inside that house lived my carefully curated existence. My husband, Mark, dependable, structured, successful. A man who brought me coffee in bed every Sunday without fail. A man who kissed my forehead before business trips. A man who believed providing was the same thing as loving. My daughter, Sophie, brilliant, disciplined, now in her second year of medical school. The kind of daughter mothers brag about in grocery store lines. The kind of child who made strangers nod approvingly when they heard her future plans. And then there was me, Elena, 44 years old, interior designer. Wife, mother, stable, composed, grateful. At least that's what I told myself. From the outside, my life looked like it had been pulled straight from a lifestyle magazine spread titled, How to Build the Perfect Family. But perfection is a beautiful disguise. And disguises eventually slip. It began on a Tuesday that wasn't supposed to mean anything. Late June. The Georgia heat had settled over our property like a suffocating secret. The air was thick enough to press against your lungs. Even the trees looked exhausted. Mark was away again. His third trip that month. Chicago, Cleveland, Cincinnati. They blurred together in my memory like airports and hotel lobbies. Sophie was home for the summer, technically studying for her medical licensing boards. In reality, she was dividing her time between textbooks and poolside afternoons with friends. That's when I truly noticed him. Nathan. He had been orbiting our lives for years. Sophie's friend since freshman year of college. I'd seen him dozens of times, passing through hallways, laughing in the kitchen, offering polite greetings. He was always respectful, always well-mannered, the type of young man mothers approved of. But that afternoon was different. I was kneeling in the flower bed near the pool fence, my gloves buried in soil, when I heard the splash. At first, I didn't look up. But something, instinct, curiosity, fate, made me lift my head. And there he was, pulling himself out of the water. Time didn't just slow. It unraveled. Water streamed down his shoulders, caught the sunlight, and scattered into tiny flashes like shattered glass. His body wasn't sculpted for attention. It was built through discipline, through routine, through strength. He pushed his wet hair back and reached for a towel. And then he turned. Our eyes met. Not accidentally. Not casually. Intentionally. A slow smile curved across his face, not arrogant, not shy, but aware. As if he had caught something unspoken passing between us. He lifted his hand in a small wave. I waved back, dirt clinging awkwardly to my glove. And for reasons I didn't want to name, my cheeks burned. That night I couldn't sleep. I lay beside the cold emptiness of Mark's side of the bed, and replayed that moment over and over. The water on his skin. The steadiness of his gaze. The way he looked at me, not past me, not through me, at me. And that terrified me. Because I couldn't remember the last time someone had looked at me like that. Not as a mother. Not as a wife. Not as an obligation. But as a woman. I told myself it was biological. Simple. Meaningless. He was 24. Healthy. Young. Attractive. Of course I reacted. That didn't mean anything. I was mature, grounded, loyal. I didn't entertain fantasies. I didn't indulge weakness. I didn't cross lines. But the mind is a dangerous place when left alone at night. And the more I told myself to forget the moment, the more vivid it became. Nathan began spending more time at our house, studying with Sophie, helping her review anatomy terms, quizzing her over flashcards at the dining table. He had graduated the year before and was working at a physical therapy clinic nearby. His schedule was flexible, his presence constant. Breakfast, lunch, dinner, laughter echoing down hallways, the sound of his voice blending into the rhythm of our home. And I noticed everything. The way he cradled his coffee mug with both hands, as if absorbing warmth. The way he truly listened when someone spoke, leaning forward, eyes focused, completely present. The way his gaze would find mine across a room and linger just a second too long before slipping away. Those seconds began to stretch. And something inside me, something dormant for years, began to wake up. I started paying more attention to my reflection. I bought a dress I didn't need. I wore my hair down instead of pulling it into the practical ponytail I'd worn for years. I applied lipstick in the afternoons for no reason at all. At least, that's what I told myself. Mark didn't notice. When he was home, which was less and less, he was absorbed in spreadsheets, sports highlights, conference calls. We discussed logistics, bills, schedules, travel plans. But when was the last time he asked how I felt? When was the last time he looked at me like I was something worth studying? I couldn't remember. And that realization hurt more than I expected. It happened on a Wednesday. Sophie had gone downtown with friends. Mark was in another city that began with C. I was alone in the kitchen, chopping vegetables out of habit more than hunger. Nathan appeared in the doorway. "Sophie's not here," I said. "I know." He stepped inside anyway. "She said she'd be back later." He moved toward the refrigerator, comfortable, familiar, too familiar. As he reached above me for a glass, his arm brushed mine. Bodyskin against bodyskin. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't intentional. But it wasn't nothing. Electricity shot through me, sharp, undeniable. I froze. He paused. The air shifted. "Sorry," he said quietly. But there was no apology in his eyes. Only awareness. Only recognition. Only the silent confirmation that whatever this was, we both felt it. He stepped away. But I stood there gripping the counter, pulse racing like I'd just stepped too close to a cliff's edge. That night, I sat alone on the porch. Fireflies flickered above the lawn like tiny, reckless stars. I felt ashamed. And alive. How could both exist at the same time? I was attracted to a man half my age. My daughter's friend. A young man who trusted me. Respected me. What kind of woman did that make me? I tried to rationalize. Loneliness can distort judgment. Neglect can amplify desire. Biology doesn't care about wedding rings. But understanding temptation doesn't justify it. And I promised myself, under that heavy southern sky, that I would not cross that line, no matter how badly I wanted to. So I avoided him. Errands. Late meetings. Sudden social visits. Sophie noticed. "You're never home anymore, Mom." If only she knew. But you can't outrun something that lives inside your own chest. Late July. Mark called. Trip extended another week. Sophie drove to Atlanta to see her boyfriend. For the first time in weeks, the house was silent. I poured myself a glass of wine, opened a book, planned a quiet evening free of tension. Then the doorbell rang. Nathan stood on my porch, a bottle of wine in one hand, that same knowing expression in his eyes. "Sophie's not here," I said again. "I know." Silence stretched between us. "I was hoping you might want company." I should have said no. I should have closed the door. I should have protected the fragile boundary I'd built. Instead, I stepped aside and let him in. We sat on the patio as the sky turned gold, then rose, then deep violet. The wine was expensive, and it went down too easily. With every sip, my defenses thinned. With every shared silence, the distance narrowed. Finally, he asked, "Can I ask you something personal?" "That depends." He didn't hesitate. Are you happy? The question hit harder than any touch. No one had asked me that in years. Not my husband. Not my friends. Not even myself. That's complicated, I said. He turned toward me fully. I've watched you, he said softly. You give so much. And I don't see anyone giving back. My throat tightened. You deserve to feel seen. And in that moment, I realized the most dangerous thing about temptation isn't desire. It's feeling understood. And that was the night the line began to blur. This is about emotional starvation. About what happens when someone finally offers water to a person who didn't realize they were dying of thirst. And we're only at the beginning. Because what happened next changed everything.